Good evening, everybody. At this point, I would like to call our February 11th, 2025 meeting to order. Would everybody please stand up for the flag salute? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Boyce, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mrs. Van Horn.
Here.
Mr. Sergio.
Present, sir.
Mr. Jess.
Here.
Mr. Carlson.
Here.
Mrs. Sherwin.
Here.
Mrs. Kraska.
Here.
Mrs. Dale is absent. Mr. Kimmick.
Here.
Mr. Garcia is absent. Mrs. Shaw.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum. Public notice, adequate notice of this meeting in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 entitled the Open Public Meetings Act has been provided by action of the Board of Education at its regular meeting on January 7, 2025. Notices to the Courier News and Star Ledger circulated in the school district and a posted notice to this effect on the Board of Education website and Building Bulletin Board Administrative Headquarters, 51 West Cliff Street, Somerville, New Jersey. So at this point, we are opening up the floor to public comment. And again, just keep in mind, please, that public comment and participation are governed by the rules that are stated within the agenda itself. I would just ask that if you're making comment, first that you state your name and your address, and keep your comments to approximately 3 minutes, okay? Are there any public comments?
Good evening, Danny Tidlady, 15 Hamilton Street, Somerville, New Jersey. So when you download I have a request. When you download the agenda, you can search it. It's easily searchable, like if you're looking for something specific. Is it possible to get the meeting minutes uploaded to the website, also in a PDF file that is searchable? Like as of right now, you'd have to read through the whole thing if there was something specific you were looking for. Just make it more readable if there was something that you were specifically looking for. That's it.
Great, thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments?
Distinguished members of the school board, Superintendent Labisco and friends, Jamie Bartushak, Reddington, New Jersey. I wanted to address the board this evening with respect to the voting referendum regarding the facilities expansion and renovation projects within the district. I applaud the administration and school board for initiating a very ambitious and long-reaching capital program in upgrading the infrastructure across the district. The widespread facilities and programs will likely impact every student in the district and for the better. Investment in our schools on a prudent basis is necessary to maintain competitiveness and lasting viability. Our schools and communities are ensconced together as one. For many, your home is the most significant asset of ownership that you have. The value attributable to your home is directly reflected in and by the quality of the schools. Any future incremental value appreciation that your home realizes is also greatly attributable to its schools. By investing in our schools and its programs and facilities, we continue to make the district a place that people want to move and raise families. I hope that this message resonates so that the referendum passes and the project can move forward. And while the checkbook is open, our music program is growing both in numbers as well as opportunities and accolades for students. Certainly the marching band's notoriety is well established. Additionally, the concert programs have achieved their biggest enrollment in many years, and the choral program has had a record number of freshmen. A quick microcosm of this growth is indicative in the indoor percussion ensemble. The Viper Percussion Ensemble had about 12 people 3 years ago. It now has 36. I would urge the board to look at the capital needs regarding instruments and equipment. My rough back of the envelope calculations is that roughly $250,000 would accommodate this. It could be adopted with a 3 to 4 year refresh plan with about $62,000 to $83,000 a year going towards that effort. The growth of the program is also such that the district may need to look at an incremental teaching position to keep the student-staff ratios in line with reasonable metrics. Please continue to invest in this flagship program, which is one of the cornerstones of the school with some of the most intelligent and talented achievers at the high school. and an environment that is accommodating for all. Thank you very much. Thank you what you do for the district.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments?
Hello, my name is Nicholas Eugene Olvera, and I live at 11 Shady Side Court, Branchburg, and I attend Branchburg Central Middle School. I am currently in 7th grade, and I am here to advocate for an orchestra program at Somerville High School. I have been attending orchestra since 5th grade, and when it was introduced to me, and that is when it was introduced to me. I now play for the orchestra and chamber orchestra at BCMS once a week for the before school club. I love playing for orchestra. Playing the cello is my life, and I plan to continue through high school, college, and its professional career. Currently, as you know, there is no orchestra program during the school hours at Somerville High School. Myself, my family, other orchestra members at the middle and other orchestra members at the middle school and their families would like to ask for an orchestra program that will be in place so that we can continue what we love. Currently, there are 62 members at the middle school, many of which are passionate about what we do. We look forward to our classes, lesson times, performances, trips, and competitions. There is an after-school club at the high school, but it only meets once a week. That doesn't satisfy the daily experience and grade that we would obtain from a structured orchestra class. As I can't speak on a personal level for each student that plays, but I know that music gives me an outlet to express myself. It improves my life quality. It gives me a way to be creative, a way to channel my emotions. It gives me a social outlet, an opportunity to socialize with other students my age with similar passions. There is tons of literature and benefits of music. How music introduces introduces brain reaction and stimulates direction and cognitive skills. There are studies that show music helps students get better at grades, makes us more responsible and disciplined, helps us open up and be more social because it gives us the ability to express ourselves. I don't want to end my education next year after 4 years of working so hard. I've learned so much and have had wonderful teachers. I had already considered other high schools to attend to because there is no orchestra program at SHS. Other options are very expensive or require me to move to another town. If you could please consider adding an orchestra curriculum to myself and many other students' lives in SHS, we would be very grateful. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'm Regina Santangelo. I live 126 Old York Road in Bridgewater, and I am the orchestra advisor. I am the orchestra teacher at BCMS, and I lead the club, which does meet once a week after school on Thursdays. I want to start off by acknowledging that many of you have seen me here every couple years and are used to my speech, if you will. And I also just want to acknowledge how grateful I am for your funding of the club and allowing me to meet with the students and to have this club. It's been a really positive experience for the students and a great way for me to continue the music education for these students. As you heard from my student, Nick, there are so many students who are missing out, not only on having the full experience of being in classes, but also so many students don't participate in the club because there's so many other things after school. They have sports, they have family conflicts. A lot of my students have work and they can't participate because they're working. And I feel so sad that these students aren't able to continue. Certainly there is a phenomenal band and choir program, and I do encourage all of my students to take advantage of this so that they can continue in music. But asking someone who's really passionate about their instrument to change their instrument after 4 years is really hard to do. So I do urge you to consider what it might look like to add an orchestra class to your curriculum. Maybe it would start as just an elective, or maybe it would become something more than that to be able to reach these students. My numbers at BCMS have grown in the 8 years that I've been teaching there. Now it ranges typically from 60 to 70 kids in just Branchburg Middle School, and then it drops down. Right now I have 20 to 25 kids in this club, which again, I'm so grateful. The kids that are there, they're really passionate, they make every effort to be there. But I'm missing out on all the students who tell me, oh, this was my passion, but I'm really competitive in track, so I can't do both. I can't miss out on my fencing meets, which are on Thursdays. And you heard how the music program is growing with the band and the choir. So if there is a consideration for a part-time position, that person could teach orchestra, and there would be interest. I guarantee you there would be so much interest, and it would only enhance the program. I do have some students who participate in band and choir, but a handful just do not, and they don't get to have it as part of their GPA. It makes it very difficult if they wanted to actually pursue music. Not that that's the sole purpose of music education, but just meeting for an hour a week is really not enough. I also wanted to ask what this would look like long term, if there are certain numbers that you're looking for me. You've heard me speak at board meetings, but I would love if there's some sort of communication so that I could know, okay, we're working towards this number in the club, and that will allow us to consider it. I know that because there's no string program in the middle school for Somerville Elementary, that has been also a point of contention. But if there's a person who maybe could be part-time at the high school and maybe start a program at the middle school, it would, like I said, only enhance the program. I know I'm short of my time. I just wanted to add that I do have probably over the past couple years 10 to 15 families who have outright told me that they're moving or sending their kids to private school because of the lack of the orchestra program. So then you're missing out on those excellent students in Somerville High School. So I just wanted to bring that up as something that I'm seeing that you're not necessarily seeing in your numbers, that this really is a lack. For how phenomenal the music program is, it would only be better by adding this other branch. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, can I please have a motion to close public comment?
So move.
Okay, second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstention? Okay, public comment is now closed. I do want to just, first, Nick, I want to thank you for the bravery that it takes to go up. It's a courageous thing to stand up in front of a number of adults and make a public comment like that. So I applaud you just for how you did that, for the way you composed yourself. That's not an easy thing to do, and I do appreciate everything that you said. Ms. Santangelo, I want to thank you as well for your comments relative to the orchestra program. As some of you may know, I've received a lot of emails over the past week about this. What I can commit to is the idea, again, of at least having one of our committees examine that. As you know, this is, it's a facility question. It becomes a staffing question. It certainly becomes a budget item that, has to be examined very, very carefully. And it's something, again, that I can only commit that we'll ask that other members of the board take a look at this. I can't make any promises with regard to what will happen with that, but I think, your willingness to come over and actually run the club and work in the club, is a step that wasn't there a few years ago. And I think it's a process, again, in terms of just incrementally moving forward and making sure that we're just examining possibilities with that. So I do want to commit to that as well. And Nick, again, I want to thank you for your words, because to me, the most powerful thing is when a student comes out and talks to us. So you should feel very good about that. Again, comments around just the other aspects of our music program. I think we all appreciate the arts, and we all see the value in the arts programs themselves. And I just want to thank you for your comments as well. And certainly the idea of being able to search something in terms of the minutes, we'll take a look at that as well. So again, any other comments from board members? Very quickly. Okay. All right. Okay, good job, Mr. Jess. All right. Approval of minutes. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the Board of Education meeting as follows. January 7th, 2025, regular meeting. Can I have a motion for that,
So
please?
moved, sir.
Mr. Sergio, a second.
Second.
Ms. Van Horn, a second. Mr. Boyce? We can do it all in favor on it, right?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
One abstention.
And Mr. Carlson, abstention. Okay, great, thank you. All right, Board President's Report. I'll try to keep this very brief because we do have a number of things that we're just doing in terms of presentations. I do want the public to realize that we made a number of adjustments to our agenda format. So if you're looking at the agenda, you'll see that we moved our committees up to the front of the agenda. If we have a committee report, the committee report will only take place if the committee has met between the time that the last board meeting took place and this board meeting, and board members have had the opportunity to review the minutes of the committee meetings before public presentation of those minutes. So just be aware that's a shift that we're making with that, so you'll see a date next to the committee. If it's listed, that typically means that that committee met and that they're ready to make a report to the full board in public. It's important, I think, for board members to recognize that you should be able to view those minutes before they are publicly reported, so you're informed and you're able to ask questions if you would like to of the committee chairs with that. You'll also notice that the agenda is organized now into K-8 items and 9-12 items. So we are going to continue just with the consent agenda. So that means that we'll have two motions on our agendas. That there'll be a motion for all K-8 items. And they'll just be done at once, and the board will vote on K-8 items, and then we'll have a second motion for our 9-12 items. So they're no longer organized by the committee groupings, they're just organized by K-8 and 9-12, just to kind of keep the consent items clean for everybody and just understanding what how that's going to work. I do want to note on the agenda there are two retirements that are within the agenda tonight that long-term staff members have made a decision to retire. One is Marjorie Mahoney, who is a school psychologist at Somerville Middle School. She's retiring come July. She has been with the district for 28 years, which is just a very long career within Somerville. I think it's something, again, that that speaks, I think, to her commitment to the community and just to her work as well within town. And then Amy Lawless, who is a physics teacher at the high school, is also retiring, and she has been with the district for 22 years. So I want to thank both of those employees and teachers just for their commitment to our students, their commitment to our programs, and really just recognize that they've touched a lot of lives in their time in Somerville. The other thing I just want to point on the agenda is item number 10. There's a item in there about Somerville Middle School auditorium seating renovation. And I want to thank Mr. Boyce, and I want to thank the Facilities Committee because they've really taken a look again at capital planning, and that's something that I think the district has done very well over the years in terms of upkeep on buildings, in terms of looking at opportunities for grants outside of just our regular operating budget. And this is something, again, that when we look at our middle school, that's something that, with respect to the auditorium, that auditorium is just a gem, and it's something, again, that the seating there is in dire need of repair. So this is addressing that need. And I bring this up because it's also the idea with our referendum, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. This is the kind of project in terms of upkeep that has been a part of our capital planning and been a part of our regular budget and capital planning, and then certain grants that Mr. Boyce and his team have worked very hard to acquire, where the referendum is outside of that. They're much bigger projects and they're things that fall outside of our regular capital planning. But there are always items like that within our agenda, and I just wanted to point that out to the community and point that out to the board because there's certainly some good work and I think a real commitment to the upkeep of the buildings as much as we can do within our operating budget outside of something like a referendum. So with that, I'll close my report and I'll turn it over to our superintendent.
Yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kimmick, appreciate it. And for the sake of time, I'm going to go right into a really important topic that we want to talk about tonight, and you can see it on the screen right here. So we are heavy into trying to get the community up to speed about the factual and clear information for the referendum. I think it's really important because we had discussions in the fall and in December made a decision as to what it was going to look like, and now it's getting out that information both in terms of what actually are in the two questions, what the cost is going to be to the taxpayer, and how that's going to materialize. So, with all that said, we have a pretty complex campaign that's designed to educate and engage the entire community, and I think it's important for everyone to know that that'll be done on multiple platforms, right? So we'll provide information the old-fashioned way, we'll provide information digitally, provide information in person. We've already started some of those campaigns, getting out in the public and talking to people and answering questions that they might have. And we want voters to be able to make informed decisions. That's really what our #1 priority is. So, with that said, in a moment I'm going to show a video. This video will be out there for the entire public. It gives a nice overview of what's going on in the referendum from top to bottom. I want to thank the folks that helped us with that, one being to my left here, Mr. Garcia speaking on behalf of the board. We also had Tyler Kazar speaking on behalf of some of the arts and the programs he's heavily involved in, and Jennifer DePace speaking both as a citizen and an employee of the district. So it's really important that this information gets out there because it really summarizes in video form what's going on there. We're also going to have 2 really important public forums, and in those forums, the entire community will have an opportunity to ask people questions, and those people are not only us and the people from our faculty, but the professionals that we've hired to work with on this referendum. So on February the 19th at 7 o'clock in the Media Center, we'll have an in-person forum with those folks available, and then a building tour of 2 of the major components of question 1, which is the auditorium and the science room. So I think it's important that people see it. When you go in that auditorium, as you said, we have a gem here in the middle school auditorium. That's also a really important piece of so many of our programs, the high school auditorium, but it's in sore need of updating. That's a 1970s original, all right? And we want people to be able to see that so that can help make a decision on whether, which way they want to go with that vote. And then on March 4th, there's a virtual forum at 7 o'clock, and that'll be via Zoom. We'll get that link out to everyone. It'll be on the website. And speaking of that website, that is a one-stop shop. That's constantly being updated. It has all the necessary information to fully understand the referendum and all the components of it. But it also is up to date with questions that we receive from individuals so that all those questions and answers can be there for the public to consume. We have mailings. There'll be postcards that are sent to all residents in Somerville. Printed material, flyers and business cards that are being distributed. Those are available in multiple languages. Press releases and social media. So we're going old-fashioned with the press releases. You'll see those on from time to time, but also social media has that information readily available. And community outreach. As we said, we are going to as many community events as we possibly can to answer those questions in person for folks. And there's also a dedicated email address that you can get on the website, and people have been asking questions via that format. And then, like I said, we respond directly to the folks, but then we also post that in fax, the FAQs. So this is a focused campaign really built on transparency and accessibility. We want every community member to understand what they are looking at on that March 11th vote so that they don't have any questions regarding it. And what we're going to do, just kind of to finish things off tonight, is take a look at this brief video. And we really want the community to stay engaged, stay informed, and stay involved in this process. So, Glenn, if you don't mind just playing that video for us. It's a little under 5 minutes, but then that'll be available and publicly consumable after we play it here. Oh, you might have to give us a few minutes, but to get it up online.
Here in Somerville, we deeply value our schools and are proud of how they stand out across the state.
Our community trusts our schools, and now the Board of Education trusts the community to decide the district's future.
Somerville schools prepared me and countless others for real-world success.
It's true. Somerville Public Schools have a reputation for setting and maintaining high standards in academics, athletics, and performing arts. Our school facilities, however, need updates to match the extraordinary things happening inside our classrooms and on our fields and stages. That's why we're holding a bond referendum on Tuesday, March 11th.
The Board of Education carefully chose projects that benefit every student in Somerville. We imagined a future in which high school students would conduct science experiments in labs that reflect modern advances rather than the 1970s. We imagined the sense of security our students, staff, and their families would feel walking through new security vestibules every morning. And we imagined the Ville pride our community would feel cheering on our award-winning sports and performing arts in a fully renovated auditorium, in a new gymnasium, or in a new multi-sport turf field.
When voters like me go to the polls March 11th, we will consider 2 ballot questions. The first question is far-reaching, touching every school and every student with updates to science labs, multi-purpose rooms, roofs, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, security vestibules, athletic storage, auditoriums, and more. A multi-sport turf field at Vanderveer would also serve the whole community and make scheduling games and practices far easier, especially after it rains.
Somerville students and staff deserve to have facilities that match the caliber of teaching and learning. The science labs in particular haven't been updated since the 1970s. We want our facilities to reflect our district's commitment to STEM and prepare our students for the environments they'll find in college and their careers.
The second ballot question would transform our high school. A new athletic building would feature a gym, locker rooms, weight room, athletic training facility, and more. My own 3 children have already graduated from Somerville High School, but would have loved a second gym. They often practiced or competed late at night since scheduling was challenging with only one gym.
We know that athletics builds confidence and has been linked to academic success. But this space wouldn't be just for student athletes. The marching band, color guard, robotics team, and more would use this space, not to mention the rec programs and community groups.
We trust the community to decide and crafted the ballot to have 2 questions. The timing of this referendum is advantageous for 2 reasons. State aid is available and debt from previous referenda will soon be paid off. As a result, voter approval of question 1 would lead to a tax decrease, and voter approval of questions 1 and 2 would lead to a tax increase. Either way, state aid helps offset the cost to taxpayers.
That state aid, $7.3 million for both questions, comes from money that Somerville residents, as well as every other New Jersey resident, already paid to the state through taxes. Only communities with a voter-approved referendum can access this type of aid.
Somerville students are extraordinary. They're high-achieving academically and often participate in multiple extracurricular activities beyond the classroom. This referendum is for them.
It's also for the Somerville community, a town that is strong because of our schools. Please remember to vote on Tuesday, March 11th. Polls will be open from 6 in the morning to 8 at night at Vanderveer Elementary School and Somerville High School. Visit somervilleschools.org to learn more about the project's financial strategy and how to vote. See you at the polls.
All right. I want to thank everyone that was involved in that important messaging there. That'll be out there for the community. And then, as I said, the website really is a one-stop shop. And we hope to see everybody at either the virtual and or in-person opportunities to ask questions. So another component of my monthly reports is going to be regarding the district audit. So I think it's important that not only in my newsletter, which I put out on a monthly basis, but also here at the meetings, we give an update of what's been going on and the important work that our students, our staff, and our administrators have been up to there. So one of the first things is in terms of data usage. So there's been improvements there and have been since the beginning of the school year, streamlining teacher access to student data, and then taking that information, having a refined data warehouse and consistency checks so it's accurate and it's used in a meaningful way. We continue to refine teacher evaluation processes, ensuring that inter-rater reliability is there with important feedback tied to identified look-fors that all of our administrators have that are tied to our data goals. Recruitment and hiring processes that have been and will continue to be refined, especially with our new HR director, Dr. Cifuentes, to make sure they're efficient and aligned to our district priorities. Ongoing work to optimize student placement and refine course offerings so that they do reflect our student needs and give them all the academic opportunities that they need. And a curriculum update cycle has been developed and put into place to make sure that those are up to date and looked at on a 5-year rotating cycle. Obviously, learning standards come out that make us tweak that, then obviously we have to adapt to the state, and they tend to throw those curveballs at us from time to time. We've also streamlined our assessment schedule. That was a really important observation and component to the district audit, was making sure that we're not over-assessing, but we have to make sure we have enough assessments to give a real indication of where our students are in real time. Our data teams are up and running not only in each of the buildings, but on a district-wide level. And the purpose of those is to look at that data, be able to turnkey and utilize it and give teachers actionable steps in the classroom with where their students are right now. We're utilizing data right now, in fact, giving benchmarks and assessments like that so that we can look at where students are now leading up to the state assessments, and then actually take a look at the standards, unpack them, and see where our students have been struggling. In terms of MLs, we want to and have continued to look at our intake protocols and our exit protocols to make sure that those are in line with where our students are and where they need to be. But also, we already looked at in the beginning of the school year how those classes were organized and what type of structure they had and what curriculum they were using. SEI training, which is sheltered English instruction, is on a yearly basis now. It had been done in the past with many of our instructors, but now it'll be reinstituted this spring, and then on a yearly basis, all our students, or excuse me, all our teachers receive that. And really going forward, we're going to continue this important work, looking at our data system, looking at our professional learning opportunities. The 18th is our next one. We're really looking forward to that, and that's going to be quite a bit of work on getting our teachers up to speed on how to use data in real time, how to use it in a meaningful way so it informs their instruction now, but then also in terms of long term, looking at it in terms of our curriculum. Are we covering all the standards in the proper time frame? What does our pacing guide look like? What do we do with that information? So those are some things that we've been working on and will continue to do so. So I wanted to give everyone an update there. And if we want, Bill, I can jump into that quick presentation on our goals, or if you want to go reports first, up to you.
Why don't we go ahead and do the presentation, and we'll do reports.
Excellent. Thank you, Glenn. Here's a copy for all board members. A little cheat sheet with some of the goals that we talked about. Oh, I gave you one.
Is that for me?
One for everybody. All right. So this is something we've talked about and had a few discussions on, but what we really want to look at quickly here is how we set our goals, the committee work that we're doing that Bill alluded to, and then the CSA evaluation, my evaluation happens on a yearly basis. All right, so board goals. We've talked about these conceptually. We've had some comments on them. What I gave you there was just a little cheat sheet on some of the highlights that you'll see here up on the screen. But we want to address the role of the Board of Education. We want to make sure that must be entirely within the board's purview in terms of these goals. They should be drafted, discussed, and fine-tuned by the board. And the board should vote formally, which we have done on one goal already. If you recall, that one goal that we have voted on and appears on our agenda is Board of Education has approved the August 2024 curriculum audit to be used as a strategic tool to enhance student performance, improve academic achievement, and strengthen curricular programs throughout the district. And these goals can be multi-year in nature. So, with that said, an important component to working towards those goals would be our committee work. And looking at what the committee's responsible for, and then the board as a whole. So, committees do not decide on issues for the board. They lessen the legwork for the board. They do the deep dive on issues of governance and determine a recommendation for the full board, right? They're then going to allow the board to either accept, modify, or reject those recommendations. And in order for the board to do their best work, we really need communication, as Bill alluded to before. Getting whatever happens in those committees communicated out to the rest of the board members so they all know what's going on before it's then shared with the public. So that's an important step to that work. So in terms of best practices, we want to clearly define the mission of these committees. The board understands the purpose of the committee, and the committee members understand what their duties are when they go into those committees. We want to make sure that we're respectful of people's time, but that we use that time together wisely. All right? Consistent committee membership for the calendar year, so we want to get on an agenda of when we're going to meet and get those calendar invites out to everybody. Oh, I skipped one, sorry. And an administrative liaison, which is going to attend those meetings, right? And that'll be a regular and the same person, so there's consistency there. We want to keep those meeting dates regular. Obviously, if emergencies come up, you tweak them, but you put out the whole year schedule for those so that everybody knows when they are and can work around those. They're going to perform work to support the superintendent's recommendations to the boards for future agendas, right? Not busy work. And the agendas are promulgated shared with all the Board of Ed members, not just committee members. We talked about that. And then minutes are going to be distributed to everyone. I had mentioned this already, but it's important that you have a start and an end time and you're respectful of that. You want a real strict agenda that's going to be followed and adhered to, right? Sometimes you might stray in a conversation, but we want to get back onto that important work that we've been assigned as a committee. It should be focused and take care of that work at hand and allow for discussion among all members, board members and administrators alike. Minutes are to be taken in a consistent and appropriate manner, and as we talked about, communicated out. They should be accurate, and everyone should be on board with what's in those minutes, right? It's important that they're accurate because everyone's going to be getting them and then eventually shared with the public. So we want to make sure that those reports that come out reflect those minutes accurately. The committee abide by an established mechanism for all members to gain that thorough understanding. And chairperson uses the minutes as a basis for their committee report that they make at the public meeting. And committees examine their effectiveness on a regular basis, right? So we're always reflecting on our practices, making sure that we're doing what we've been assigned to do and tasked with, and make sure we stay on task with that. All right. The last component is the timeline that we'll talk about at a later date, but make sure that adheres to the responsibilities the board has for my yearly evaluation. All right. Eva?
All right, thanks. Yeah, just for the full board, and I do want to just have or invite a short discussion about this if people would like to ask questions. This is one of the areas that I think we really just need to kind of think about how we function as a board, making sure that a couple key points like the agendas for meetings being sent out to the full board ahead of the meeting taking place. Like essentially when a meeting is scheduled and we know that there's going to be a curriculum committee meeting, the agenda should be something that is developed and is, in my opinion, shared with the full board before the meeting takes place. It's not something, again, that means that you can't have something introduced to that agenda that takes place organically within a meeting, but generally speaking, board members should be apprised of what is being discussed within those meetings. So that's kind of a shift, I think, in the way that, in my experience, our committees have functioned. JR has also kind of pointed out a couple other things that were on those slides. The idea of minutes being taken at the meetings and having a standard format for minutes, really, that I think is shared between committees as like, this is just kind of the way that we take our minutes. And then really, I think that the point of having like a standard or a set person administratively who is the liaison, that person can also help with that. That person can kind of help kind of organize some of that, because if we're meeting in a school facility and it's, something that you can't get on the network here, that person can also attend to that. The administrator should also contribute to the agenda. So it's the type of thing that it should be a board agenda, but, it's also the type of thing that an administrator may say, this is really important that we talk about this during this time frame. So it's more of a collaborative effort with that. JR and I have a lot of discussions about this, I think, in the times that we've kind of met over the past month and a half or so, just trying to just make sure that we have systems in place that are clear for the administrators, are clear because we have a lot of new people on our administrative team, are shared in terms of the clarity with board members, and that work is something, again, that is sustainable over time. So like as we kind of shift committee chairs next year or the following year, that JR has a system that's clear and the administrators understand it, the board members understand it, and when we do our orientation for new board members, we're able to communicate that effectively as well. Are there any questions about process on that or comments, Mr. Shaw?
No, just for clarity, really simple, the administrator, is that somebody that is a committee member as well? To take minutes and help set the agenda? Okay.
Yeah. So the administrator is a full participant in the meeting. I think when we talk about attendance at a meeting, an administrator would be noted as being there as well, and is serving on that committee as the administrative liaison. Yeah.
And as far as recording the minutes, is going to be a standard template that will be created, or will it be specific?
Yeah, I think something will be pushed out, and he has something again that can be shared with the administrators and also shared with the committee chairs, so they're clear on that. And I think, that's just one of those things, again, that, when we talk about, the public presentation of minutes, the idea in our work here as a full board, when a public presentation of the minutes is done, that's the opportunity for us to kind of share our work with the public, but it's also the opportunity that if there is a question that somebody has about those minutes, that the board member has been able to review it ahead of time and not hearing it for the first time when it's being presented in public. So that board member would be able to actually say, well, I do have a question about this, and can you clarify this item on those minutes, that type of thing. I think relative to board goals, you know, JR provided kind of a cheat sheet here that has some draft board goals that he and I discussed. That's not intended to be an adoption of goals tonight. I think what I would ask is for everybody to review board goals that are on here. If you disagree with those board goals, or you think like that shouldn't be on there for now and there should be something else in place, that you look at that you provide feedback to me. JR and I meet weekly, and he and I can have a discussion about that, and for our next meeting, we want to do a formal adoption of board goals. So I would ask that everybody contribute, you know, their ideas around what our board goals should be, as opposed to district goals, and make sure that that's the work of the board. So, you know, one of the things I think that our board goal that I'm going to recommend is that we really revise our you know, our committee workings, and that we make sure that we're attending to that across the year in terms of our committee communication. You know, that may be an example of a board goal that's kind of measurable at the end of the year for us. We can kind of look at that, and that makes sense. All right. Questions or comments about our board members?
Do you want us to email you and JR together?
You can email us both, sure. Great.
Yes, I do have a question. If on receiving minutes from a committee, and if we have questions or comments, do we email that committee or wait until the next public meeting?
I think it's appropriate, you can email that committee chair to ask clarification about that. And you should CC me on that as well, so I'm aware of that. You know, I think that's an appropriate thing to do in terms of, you know, a very specific question. If it's something, again, that we want all board members to hear or see, then that's something, again, that I would bring up at a board meeting as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we have to be very careful when we put out these meeting agendas, which I think is a great idea ahead of time. It's not it doesn't become a subject for open discussion and replying to all and stuff like that. It doesn't accidentally become a quorum.
Right, and those meeting agendas should really be, they could be BCC'd the board members, and I would recommend any time that, and the committee chair and the administrative liaison, JR and I could speak about this, like who is sending out those minutes to the committee itself. You know, I've done it both ways, where the committee chair does that. I've also, in my professional work, you know, do some of this as well, and administratively sometimes that can be done. But I think anytime we're having like a full sharing with the whole board, that should always be a BCC. So there's no chance of like a quorum and a discussion taking place that way. But it's a great point. I mean, that's something we have to be really, really careful about.
I personally am appreciative of this effort. I feel like it builds consistency so that when we are changing committees, that the procedures are the same. You know, we have consistency. I think it's too easy to become complacent. That yes, we're doing this, but it's not something that everyone is abiding to per se. So I think this will build consistency, and it will really help with the transitions as we move forward. Right. And then regarding the discussion about the types of committees that we would like to see for our board, is that something that is going to happen as we start to talk about these goals? Because from what I'm gleaning from what you're saying is that we're reassessing the number of committees we possibly have, if I'm interpreting this correctly. I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Committees are actually stated in board policy. Mm-hmm. So if we can always evaluate the number of committees that we have, or I think the charge of the committee. That's something that's a full board discussion, and if there are suggestions around that, then you know, that's something that would require us to make a policy change. My recommendation would be that we don't do that in the middle of the year, that we do that, you know, when we do a reorg. So like we think about that, you know, committees are assigned in January. So if we were gonna make a change to committees, I would recommend that we do that for our November agenda, and we make a change in November with the idea that we know that that committee is gonna be somehow adjusted, and that policy is then we can approve that policy in November, so we know going into December that's the adjustment that's made for the new year.
Okay. And I really will appreciate having all of the dates of the meetings for the entire year so that I can plan appropriately. So
and it is the type of thing for committee chairs. You know, my feeling is we should schedule 10 meetings a year, you know, with the idea that if there's not a topic that requires a committee meeting, we can always cancel a meeting. But I think where we get caught sometimes right now is we schedule 4 or 5 meetings, and then we need a committee meeting, and it's really hard for people to get their calendar straight. So I think, my ask would be that, people have monthly meetings scheduled, they're on the calendar. It's something that JR is aware of, it's something that the administrative liaisons are aware of. We block out our own calendars for that, and then if there's something, again, that somebody can't make a meeting, or, we have to make an adjustment to that, then that's fine, and I think, I know JR's reached out to certain committee chairs and just say, can you share the dates with me? But other board members should know that a committee is meeting at this time. You can't go to the meeting, but you should at least know that they're meeting.
But not all, the policy committee is only as needed.
It's an ad hoc
So,
one,
yeah,
right.
so-
And that's a question of, can some of those ad hoc committees be, combined in some way? There are, that's a bigger discussion, I think, that we don't have to have right now, but I think.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't supposed to schedule a yearly meeting.
No, yeah, those ad hoc ones are a little different. They only meet as required. All right.
And then once the procedures are set in place, will we be able to, can you send that out to us? It seems like we're in the development stage of deciding, are we reaching out to committee chairs? There's been a lot of things that have been discussed. So if we can get a copy of the procedures so that we're all on the same page, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think the commitment we can make on that one is that JR and I meet weekly, so he and I will finalize what we feel the procedure should be, and we'll push that out to all committee chairs and all board members, so everybody is aware of the way that's going to function. And then, that doesn't require us to formally adopt that. That's just something, again, that is going to be, kind of a norm that we have with that. But I do think, this to me is a good example of a very board-specific goal. This is something that, really governs the way we function as board members, rather than like a district goal that is kind of in the administration of the district itself. Okay? All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions there. That's great. Okay. All right. Do you have anything else to add? Or you don't? Okay. All right. Moving on to committee reports. Mr. Shajil, yours is not a committee report, but you're making a very an update. Go for it.
And a brief one, that, sir. But first, with regards to athletics and activities, I guess I'll speak to that now as well. We'll be scheduling our first meeting for March, and then, just based on the conversation now, we'll be scheduling the remaining meetings for the year. So I look forward to that. And now, really quick updates, because I know there's a lot to cover. With all the Ville faithful out there, here's some quick updates from the Pioneer Nation. I'm going to start with girls basketball because I want to first commend our student board rep, Riley DeSarno. I think that is her for including, this is Charlotte Taylor, forgive me. Charlotte Taylor here for her career 1,000th point, senior Charlotte Taylor. But I also want to say the Lady Pioneers are facing their rivals, Bridgewater right now as we speak. Tip-off's in about 10 minutes. And then Princeton Day tomorrow. There's 4 games left in the season before the 16-5 Pioneers close it out. But they are on a tear, winning 6 of the last 8. And the last loss, including the Somerset County tournament round to Bernards. But last week's conference players of the week, let's give it up for, I said, Charlotte. She had, against Homedale, she had 11 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 19 points, 5 assists, 5 steals, 4 rebounds, and 2 blocks against Ridge. And obviously her 1,000th point, which I mentioned. And then 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals, and 3 blocks in that same game. Let's go to boys basketball, the equally dominant squad, led by Brady Shire, and honorable mention for Skyland Conference Player of the Year. They're winners of 7 of the last 9 and sit atop the Skyland Valley Conference. Today they're at Bernards, tip off in 10 minutes. And then the remainder of their season will add some mileage to the tires as they play Bernards tonight, Wardlow Harwich tomorrow, Denellen on Valentine's Day, and Hunterdon Central on the 18th. So he does lead the team with 414 points, and Tim Licana following up with 269. The boys fencing team had righted the ship after a 5-game tear after losing the first 6. So the Pioneers have won 8 out of 9, with the last match being tomorrow at Hackettstown. The girls fencing squad, led by Molly James, have won 2 in a row and will compete on the road to cap off their season against Hackettstown. Kent Pace on 12-20 respectively, and senior Sumaya Salma holds an amazing saver record with 24-12. And senior Tiana Nguyen is 26-6 in the epi rounds as well. Let's go to wrestling, a tough year for the wrestling program. But Coach Carita and company notched up a victory against Fort Lee in style, 46-31, led by pins from David Carrasco, Aylin Herrera, Sean O'Neill, and George, forgive my pronunciation, Dalrymple, okay? The boys are closing out the seasons at Middlesex tonight, then home in East Brunswick and Marlborough, and closing out on the road in North Plainfield. So there was a lot discussed about music tonight, and I can see probably by the small crowd, I bet you everyone in here is at the Somerville High School Jazz Ensemble at this very moment, because they are performing jazz night at Fresh Restorations in Somerville. So the quartet is also joining them in song and raising money for the Booster program. So if you haven't been filled with the spirit of music now, you should go check them out. Tickets are only $20 at the door. So if you get there on time or late, you will get your money's worth. So next I'm going to switch it over to robotics. We're going to say the date, March 11, 2025. The robotics team will gather with friends, family, and supporters to celebrate the incredible accomplishments from the 24-25 build season with an open house. Dinner is provided, and they will showcase this year's robot, and you can learn about the build and advancements that were made this year. Former board member Quintillo and I attend every year, and I encourage as many board members as possible to see this event. It is awesome. If you can attend the robotics competition to see what team building and performance actually is, especially when multiple industrial fields are combined at one, you know, this is actually a fantastic event. So, and last but not least, our musical, which will take place the 6th, 7th, 8th of March, okay, is a tribute to Elvis Presley, the king himself, and a jukebox. Musical jukebox is the name. I couldn't find it in my notes. So tickets are not on sale yet, but I will let you know. You will know when the link goes up for it. So with that, sir, that is my report.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, moving on, finance, security, buildings and grounds. Mr. Carlson, do you have a report?
No.
Okay, all right. Communications, Ms. Van Horn?
Everything was pretty much covered by Mr. Labisco.
Okay, great. Technology, curriculum, I think, Ms. Krasker, you
Yes.
doing a report? Thank you.
So we met on January 22nd. Jay already said a lot of what we discussed, so I'm not gonna say it again. Just a couple added things that we talked about. We talked about how we are using the multi-tiered system of supports called MTSS, and that's been being used by teachers for interventions, and this looks at the student as a whole in their academic and social and emotional. So take everything into account of how the student, what students are being pulled for interventions. In Vanderveer, we have 2 English language arts and 2 math interventionists. So the Somerville Middle School, we have 1 English language arts and 1 math interventionist. And at the high school, there is support during their study periods. And the high school has been observing the elementary for more insight on the intervention and referral service, which is called INRS, which is in all the schools. The budgets are being worked on to see if we can hire or reorganize staff to have more math and ELL coaches to help support the struggling students. Place we already said. Sorry, going through my notes. The ELA curriculum committee at Vanderveer has been reviewing the ELA curriculum, the best practices, and making the vision for next year. There's many resources, and they're trying to utilize them efficiently. AP classes at the high school are being reviewed for rigor and placement, discussing the prerequisites, and they are looking at the 8th graders for the incoming freshman benchmarks that are being used to help for the placement for next year. The Somerville Middle School uses iReady, and Branchburg is using the MAPS program. And we received an AI grant to utilize funds to train our staff on AI for next year, and we are 1 out of 12 districts that received that grant. And that's it.
Okay, good job.
Well, only a little
Can
red.
I ask just one question, just on the AI grant? Is it just for the staff to learn how to use it, or is it also integrating it into the curriculum so kids know how to use it, or be able to tell what is AI generated and all that good stuff?
Mostly on the staffing end, with also quite a bit of PD that goes along with how it then integrates into the classroom. But there are other efforts that are already in play by, Ms. Denrick about integrating AI and utilizing student input there. We have, expectations and guidelines that are out there already for our students, our staff, and it's going really well. I will say she has us on the cutting edge here, especially with this grant. I think it'll really put us in a place that we're utilizing it rather than reacting to it, right? We're, being proactive rather than reactive to, this tool that's not going away.
Right, exactly, and she's able to provide like best practices and
Absolutely.
all that, cause
Yep.
that would be great, okay.
And then there'll even be more, because of this grant in the summer for training.
Oh, great, okay.
Opportunities, it's great.
No, that's awesome, that's great.
Okay, any other questions? All right, and we do not have a ad hoc negotiations committee report for tonight, and policy committee, we did not have a meeting, so we don't have a report. So there's no equity residency meeting, yeah, okay.
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
There was no equity and residency
okay.
committee either. Okay. All right, so we moved on to our motions for tonight. What I'm going to ask, moving forward, what we do is I'm going to ask Mr. Jess as the vice president to make the motions, and then we'll collect a second, and then we'll just do our vote so it doesn't get confusing. So, Mr. Jess, would you make the motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 1 through 21 for the preschool through 8th grade section, please.
So moved, sir?
Okay, Mr. Sergio is our second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Mr. Boyce?
Yes, Mrs. Van Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Sergio.
Yes.
Mr. Jess.
Yes.
Mr. Carlson.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Kraska.
Yes, to all abstain to 9.
Mr. Kimmick.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll make our motion for 9th through 12th grade, Mr. Jess?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 22 through 49 under the 9th grade through 12th grade and district-wide section, please.
Second, sir?
Okay, second was Mr. Sergio. Okay, any discussion?
I would just like to give a shout out and thank you to Ms. Lawless. She was one of my teachers. She taught physics. A lot of gratitude and a big thank you. She's a tremendous educator and really grateful to have her in the district.
Great, thank you.
Just another, sorry, great.
Please.
Question, it's not as nice as that one. For the high school tuition rate, that's the Branchburg tuition?
Correct.
30. And for the, do you have a sense of what it was last year?
Yes, I do.
I was hoping you had it on hand, because I forgot to ask you that.
Okay, so this year, the 24-25 tuition rate is $20,553. The 25-26 rate you see on the agenda is $22,684. And just to explain a little bit more, Bindu, there is going to be a drop in high school enrollment next year to the tune of about 47 children. So that in and of itself will increase the per pupil rate before any increase in expenses, correct? So when you add to that, but however, the total dollars, including resource room, which is a component of the tuition that you pay, the total dollar amount would increase 2.9% for the 25-26 year.
So 2.9% increase. And this is, of course, prior to if the referendum is passed and then that implication as well to the tuition.
It assumes a portion of that referendum passing.
It assumes a portion of that.
Correct.
So, all right, 2.9%. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I do want to, just before we vote, just point out all of the coaches and peer advisors and the coordinators that are on there, and just thank those people who, they get a stipend for that, but I know they dedicate just a tremendous amount of time past those hours that they get stipended for. So thank you to all those people that are stepping up and just, working with our students and just, providing their support of our program. So, All right, that being said, Mr. Boyce, can you do a call? Please?
Yes, Mrs. Van Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Sergio.
Yes.
Mr. Jess.
Yes.
Mr. Carlson.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Kraska.
Yes.
Mr. Kimmick.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes, except for 23 and 24.
Okay, all right. Moving on to all business. No old business. Can I have a motion to close all business?
So moved.
Mr. Jess, can I have a second? Mr. Carlson, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, moving on to new business. There are no new business items. Can I have a motion to close new business?
Second.
That was Mr. Carlson at first and Mr. Sergio at second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? No? Wonderful. And we've reached adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Sergio,
Second.
second. Mr. Jess, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? We are now officially closed at 7:01. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.